The Tony nominations are announced in less than a month, and though a few shows have still yet to open, everything's been seen. There are only 8 new musicals and 3 musical revivals this season, which means that 7 of the 11 musicals will get the nomination. This is a complete 180 from last year's frustratingly overcrowded, artistically abundant season. Had Anastasia, Bandstand, A Bronx Tale, In Transit, Warpaint, or Amelie opened this season, their awards prospects would have been drastically different. I live in LA and haven't seen a single production, so all of my forecasting is based on what people I know have told me and what I've read from educated critics and specific bloggers that I trust online. Here's how I think the acting categories are shaken down on the musical side. Best Leading Actress in a Musical. There is a plethora of deserving performances in Best Leading Actress in a Musical again this year after Bette Midler triumphed over Broadway divas Patti LuPone and Christine Ebersole last year. 3 performances seem locked for the nomination in 2018, with the last 2 slots being anyone's game. The online consensus is that Katrina Lenk of The Band's Visit is unbeatable. After her, you probably have Lauren Ambrose, who's getting fantastic mentions and previews for the revival of My Fair Lady. I think Jessie Mueller is then guaranteed a nomination for Carousel, even though it hasn't opened yet, because she's got a very illustrious career thus far. Things get really tricky when you get to the leading ladies of Frozen and Mean Girls. It's impossible to know if Patty Mirren or Casey Levy will split each other's votes, or if the same could happen to Erica Henningsen and Taylor Louderman, or if the producers could decide to put one of them in featured to make the competition a little bit easier on everybody. In my opinion, it is smarter for Frozen to put Casey Levy in featured. Mean Girls already has too many featured actresses, but more on that later. Maybe both shows' producers should get on a call, because it would be bad for everybody if all 4 of these women had to compete and lead against each other. Haley Kilgore of Once on This Island could benefit from all of these vote splits, though she's really young, so it's hard to tell if they'll want to nominate her yet. So, assuming Frozen pushes Casey Levy in featured, these are the 8 women I think are circulating the 5 spots. Best Featured Actor in a Musical. This one is almost as hard to call as Featured Actress, though a couple performances are rising to the top according to critics and pundits. Broadway favorite and 2-time Tony winner Norbert Leo Butz is said to be stellar in My Fair Lady, and Gavin Lee is apparently a fantastic Squidward in SpongeBob. It's tough to tell where you go after that. There are several actors from The Band's Visit, Once on This Island, My Fair Lady, and Frozen that could land here. Alex Newell of Once on This Island and Gray Henson of Mean Girls seem to be getting the strongest buzz out of their shows, so I'm starting to think that they'll be 3 and 4. Since The Band's Visit is definitely the frontrunner for Best Musical, I think they could pull a type of sweep and pull in a couple guys here, maybe even 3, but it's really hard to tell who those will be because they have at least 5 formidable supporting male performances in that show. With all that said, I think there are 15 men with a truly viable shot at a nomination. Best Leading Actor in a Musical. There were only 5 men in competition this season, and per the Tony rules, only 4 can get nominated in that case. So who's going to be the one to get left out? I'm afraid the wonderfully talented Paul Alexander Nolan will get shut out because Escape to Margaritaville has been universally and cruelly panned by critics. That leaves us with these 4 men. Right now, it's anyone's game, but the early word on Carousel has been very confusing and very mixed, and the early word on My Fair Lady has been really positive. Things are starting to look good for Ethan Slater, who has received unanimous critical praise for his performance in SpongeBob. Best Featured Actress in a Musical. This is probably one of the hardest categories to predict of the year. The musicals this season have an abundance of strong, featured female performances, a lot of them coming from the same shows, but there isn't a favorite that looks primed for the win just yet. I'll continue with the notion that Casey Levy is in this category and would thus likely claim a spot. After that, it seems like Lindsay Mendez of Carousel is a strong possibility as well, in a role that won Audra McDonald the Tony in the 90s. It's difficult to say whether or not legendary actress and Game of Thrones star Diana Rigg will contend here for her performance in My Fair Lady, since her character doesn't sing and it's a relatively small role, but she's the only name here, so I'm starting to think that she'll be fine. Once on This Island and Mean Girls have a lot of inside competition. Kenita Miller seems to be a fan favorite alongside Broadway veterans Lea Salonga and Merle Dandridge, who are also said to be standouts in Once on This Island. Kate Rockwell is said to be the scene stealer of Mean Girls, while Ashley Park is giving her second knockout performance this year after her Lucille Lortel-nominated turn in the hit musical K-pop. And Barrett Wilbert-Weed has an 11 o'clock number that people are obsessed with. Last but not least of that show, Carrie Butler plays several characters outside of Ms. Norbury, Tina Fey's role from the film. Now that SpongeBob is the second best reviewed new musical of the year after The Band's Visit, could that mean that Lily Cooper has a legitimate shot? And the fates of the Ladies of Summer are still to be determined after they tried to recover from the rocky out-of-town reviews. These are the 13 women primarily battling it out for those 5 slots.